According to reports, President Cyril Ramaphosa is set to reintroduce a number of lockdown restrictions as the country grapples with a surge in coronavirus cases. The reintroduction of restrictions comes after a meeting between the National Coronavirus Command Council and Cabinet, as well as a number of consultations with top scientific advisors. Well, some of the restrictions which are likely to be introduced include the reintroduction of the nighttime curfew, stricter regulations on the sale of alcohol, and limiting movement between provinces. The President will address the nation at 7 p.m. this evening. To preview the President's address, I'm joined by political analyst Professor Dept. Professor, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time.
Good afternoon to you and to the listeners.
We've heard the President on several occasions shutting down the ideas of a hard lockdown being reintroduced. There were words about an intermittent lockdown being introduced in places where you have higher numbers of the coronavirus. What's your take on what we're likely to see coming out of this evening's address?
We as a people, we as South Africans must take responsibility for failure to comply with the regulations intended to protect and to preserve us. It's far easy to criticize government, but what are we doing as our people to secure our own self, to protect ourselves? But given that, well, tonight these are my expectations, and my wish is go for intermittent lockdowns. It would be unfair to treat Limpopo province, Northwest province and Mpumalanga the same way you would treat Gauteng and the Western Cape. That would be fairly unfair given how things are unfolding. But at the same time, it is about the compliance and also enforcement of the regulations. If you go around in certain spaces, surely there's never been number 5 and there's never been number 4, perhaps number 5. But from number 4 to number 3, then in certain spaces there was absolutely no compliance. And I would go along with the government saying, let's go for intermittent, even if it means a curfew, but the regulations must be upheld. You cannot have the taxi industry and you cannot not upholding the law, but you also have football tournaments going ahead under level 3 and with impunity. Something somewhere is not right.
I mean, one of the things that we've seen, the research coming out in the last couple of weeks, is the issue with the sale of alcohol, and that how that has contributed, I think, 200% to the trauma cases that we're seeing in our hospitals as well. Do you foresee the President making a call when it comes to the sale of alcohol in the country?
There would be some form of dereliction of duty if he were not to pronounce himself firmly on that. Because undoubtedly, alcohol has worsened the situation to our advantage, and even to the President's critics, and even those, the lobbies for the unbanning of the lifting of the ban on alcohol. They cannot, with a straight face, deny the fact that once the ban on alcohol was lifted, the trauma unit across the health spectrum got under severe strain. We know it. I don't live in Mars. I don't live in Jupiter. We know what alcohol does in our communities. And I'm for at least much stricter regulations, reduction of sale on particular days, and indeed, if it means in certain provinces, we must just bar the sale of alcohol for a limited period. It's not for the President, it's not for the government, it's for our own good.
I mean, you touched as well on the issue of the transport and the taxi industry. I mean, we've seen the bad blood between the taxi industry and government playing itself out in public. Do you think then the government would be able to, put that aside and say, but we're making a call that we're going to end the interprovincial travel. We're going to reintroduce the limit on the capacity within the taxis?
That one, I'm sorry, my dear, they're not going to win. I think for the past 20 years, we have allowed certain structures to create a government within a government. You can say whatever you will But when COSATU says no, government shivers. When the taxi industry says no, government shivers. And it's for that I'm beginning to sense that the legitimacy of the South African government is beginning to take a dent. People are beginning to have a dim view of the capacity of the government to govern, because it is almost guided by factional interests and by those who are influential and who can hold it to ransom.
And Prof, does that not make it hard for other industries as well to take seriously and implement the regulations that government would be reintroducing? I mean, you've got industries like the restaurant industry who have said, listen, we need alcohol when people come in to sit down, and government is not giving that to us. But you have the taxi industry who are able to say, well, we're not going to abide by this. We are going to do as we see fit so we can operate. What does that do for other industries who are watching?
That's precisely the point I am making, that the legitimacy of the South African government, unless it is reviewed and they begin to act without fear or favor, and they are treated, people are seen to be treated equally, right, then they will have to find themselves continuously brought to court and people disrespecting even the regulations. Because at the end of the day, enforcement of the law can only succeed on the will of the people when they regard the government as legitimate, acting without fear or favor.
Professor, before we let you go, would you say South Africa ended its hard lockdown and reopened the economy too soon?
No. I have no qualms with the government. I have qualms with us as a people.